Our final policy proposal for the day, draft policy 2014-19, new MDN allocation based on past utilization, and we'll have Andrew Dull come up.
Okay, I'm between you and dinner and beer. All right, let's go. Open mic, okay. Okay, this policy is a follow-on to work that was done earlier this year around updating the MDN policy. And as part of that policy, we defined two methods to permit a new site to obtain a allocation. This problem statement notes that a third option is needed for sites which won't qualify under immediate need and have a larger requirement than the minimum. I already said that. This is the policy text. Basically, there's a rewrite, but really the bottom bullet is the only addition, and it says a 3-month supply if there is an applicable 1-year utilization rate specific to the use to be covered by a new MDN, onto which to base a 3-month supply. So we now, if this policy would be adopted, we have 3 methods to justify a new MDN site: an immediate need requirement, use the current minimum allocation, A/24, or use the 3-month supply based on prior utilization. So, comments on this text and whether or not you support or do not support this change.
Microphones are open.
Adam Thompson, Manitoba Internet Exchange. Reiterating my comment from the previous one, this change does not appear to have any harmful effects, but in my opinion, it also seems to not be necessary. So I can't say I oppose it, but nor would I support it.
Not necessary because you do not know of an organization who would use it, or?
I believe that the existing criteria are, in fact, adequate.
Okay.
The modification would make life a little bit easier for certain organizations, but it does not impede their ability to conduct business.
Okay, thank you. Rear microphone.
Martin Hannigan, Akamai Technologies. Do you want to summarize the PPC conversation on this, or
You're welcome
is it
to if you would
necessary
like.
for me to repeat? I think you should take a crack at it.
Okay, during the PPC conversation, Marty raised concerns about the current language, which states evidence of need is a concern to him and his organization, and evidence of deployment, and that he would like to see that part changed.
And
Fair?
my point being that I'm not sure how you can deploy a network without IP addresses. It seems like the policy itself is broken to begin with. And I'm not necessarily in favor of the changes that you're making now, but I would probably have no comment if you actually would fix that particular point there.
Okay.
I think it's fair game since the policy is being reviewed and potentially changed. I think that, again, I'd like to echo my earlier comment that we seem to be crossing some lines with respect to how deep you want to delve into our businesses, which I'm not necessarily disagreeing that you don't have a right to ask us to justify our needs. Although I think we should eliminate needs, as we've said many times at the mic, but I think that there are more effective ways to do this, up to and including the officer attestation. Most of us work at, well, not most of us, some of us work at public companies, and those things are taken quite serious. In fact, every time I have to have one signed, it's at least a 1 to 2 hour or multiple meetings to make sure that the executive signing the document actually understands what we submitted and that it's accurate. So I would like you to change that, and if you do, I might actually support this. Thank you.
Okay, let's collaborate on what we should change it to.
Just take it out and go back to the old language that says submit a plan. We make plans and we know how to do that, and that had worked up to this point.
Remote.
Remote comment from Marla Azinger, Frontier Communications. I think the current policy works. While I understand the point here that a new discrete network needs address space to fit the load being moved over onto it. This does not explain the amount of address space left behind in the network it left. What if this now makes the region or network it left have only a 20% utilization? If in fact these discrete networks don't have separate org IDs, then there's no reason that address space can't be moved over with them. Or at least to help accommodate the move, ARIN approves just a small allocation per this current policy to get it started, and then you move IPs as you move clients. Otherwise, there are a lot of networks that could play this game down to the city and just start splitting things up with a new ASN and get a lot more address space for each of these new ASN-supported discrete networks.
Thank you. Front microphone.
Owen DeLong, Black Lotus Communications, Aaron AC. Yeah, I suppose there are a couple of ways this could be gamed, but the reality is it's a lot of effort to game it to any level of significant gain, and I don't think that the free pool is going to last long enough for that to matter all that much. On the other hand, we do have real networks that are really running into problems trying to grow and need this policy, so I think we should move forward with it. On the evidence of deployment versus a plan, there are lots of ways to show evidence of deployment that don't require you to have invested in, you know, maybe I'll get my addresses, maybe I won't. You can get letters of intent, you can get various other things that show you're serious about deploying and use those in a way that meets the test. I don't think that's going to be a problem for most organizations, but anybody can write a plan for anything, and you know, I can write a plan to deploy 16.7 million virtual machines tomorrow on a Linux box in my basement and ask for a /8, but you know, under immediate need. Not a great idea.
Okay, if folks would approach the queues, I'm going to close them in 10.
Marty, you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to address Owen's point, and sure, anybody can make up stuff, but it happens all the time, whether it's at someone asking for a /24 or potentially larger. And I think that the vast majority of us are actually honest, hardworking people that just want to get our addresses and operate our companies. And I think punishing us and frankly, it's a ridiculous requirement. It's a complete oxymoron to expect me to go spend millions of dollars in capital, have millions of dollars in capital expenses, only to not be able to justify the addresses and have my equipment sitting there effectively unused or underutilized, which is another problem in itself. And you know, obviously the free pool is being reduced, but I need a way that you know, I can actually operate a business and submit plans that are reasonable. And I'm willing to compromise on that, but as it's written, again, I think it's pretty ridiculous. Thank you.
Center rear microphone.
Mike Joseph, Google. I support this policy. Marty's comments notwithstanding, you know, I'm not suggesting whether we should or should not change the particular section around deployment. I think that that's a conversation we should probably have, and I wouldn't have any problem seeing that conversation incorporated into this policy if we have consensus on that point. But at its face, the point of this policy is to allow entities which have MDNs to essentially split an MDN. You know, you have an MDN, you need to split it up. This allows you to get address space for the new MDN based on the users or load or whatever resource will move into the new MDN. This is a real problem that real networks have, and I don't think that there's a lot of opposition to the idea of splitting an MDN, and I don't think we should make it harder to do so. So I support this policy. I support it as written, but I also welcome a discussion about the points concerning deployment.
Thank you. Any other remote? Heather? Any remote? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Andrew.